St. Kizito High School in Namgongo, Senior 1 and 2 learners resumed studies on April 12th and May 13th respectively, following the closure over COVID-19 in March last year. Senior 3 and 5 classes were scheduled to start on Monday, 7th June. But according to the Ministry of Education, there should be no preparations to report back to school until after the President speaks on COVID-19 on Sunday following a surge in the number of infections. School heads have been asked not to persuade parents into paying school fees as the opening of the new terms hangs in a balance.
So I want to advise our stakeholders, the parents, the students, and all other concerned parties to halt any activity.
The Education COVID-19 Response Committee had assessed the situation and came up with recommendations on how schools could cope with the pandemic.
Where the Ministry of Health had issued the SOPs, and there was some kind of laxity in implementation, in compliance. So we thought if we tighten on the SOPs, on compliance to the SOPs, maybe we could have these schools in operation. But of course that one was rendered null and void, because from that time when we had that kind of thinking to up to yesterday, the cases were rising every other day.
According to the head teacher of St. Kizito Namugongo, Kazibwe Ezekiel, this change affects the facility's operations.
Of course, it's going to affect us because according to the circular, it was telling us to not to call these students of senior 3 and senior 5s. These senior 3 and senior 5 students had their holidays on the 21st, and they were meant to come back on 7th, or that was this Monday, from holiday for a special term, which was to run for 7 weeks.
What about the parents who had paid school fees for the new term?
All the parents who would have paid fees, of course, we shall consider it for the term that when they will resume.
We asked the Ministry of Education what plans they have to ensure students continue with their education in this uncertain time.
We have a strategy of, for example, recovering the lost time. And in this, we are even coming up with the learning materials. As I talk now, we have dispatched the first batch, and all the schools have received. Some classes have received. And we continue. We have another batch which is forthcoming, where we are going to distribute more materials to the learners.
According to the sources, the National Task Force on COVID-19 recommended the closure of schools as a new COVID-19 strain, which also affects children bites. When some of the learners are told to stay at school, what that means is that the schools will have to improvise means of teaching them, like the use of internet or giving them education materials. But according to the headmaster of St. Kizito, when government closed schools, that was in 2020 March, after discovering the first COVID-19 case, some of the learners, especially those who stay in the villages, could not access all the materials. And therefore, even when the schools resumed, it was very hard for those students to catch up with others.
It affected us in the pace of coverage, definitely, because we had to go back. We had to start right away we had to go back and we cover everything with them so that they all can move at the same pace.
The senior 1 term is scheduled to end in July, but it is not certain if they will be sent home. Sudil Biarhanga, NTV.